Welcome to English Podcast. Subscribe our channel for more update.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're gonna jump into something that, well, it feels like it's always relevant, doesn't it? How we navigate those times when life kind of shifts under our feet, how we figure out what's next, setting new goals.
And the really crucial bit, how we actually build the habits that help us stick with those goals.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty much the human condition, isn't it? Life is just this constant process of change, of adapting,
Totally.
and understanding how to move through those phases
Yeah,
effectively. That's really foundational stuff.
absolutely. And for this deep dive, we've got this fantastic source material. It's basically a conversation between two people who recently went through some pretty big life changes themselves.
Right.
And they were really open about sharing their experiences, the struggles, the insights, all of it.
So our mission here is to kind of unpack that conversation, pull out the most useful nuggets, those actionable insights
Yeah.
that can help you navigate change and pursue your own goals, whatever they might happen to be.
Because that's something they hit on right away. Life is always changing. Sometimes it's slow, like a drift. Other times it feels more like a tidal wave, right? But it is constant.
Always.
And that makes their experience and the lessons they kind of pulled from it just incredibly relatable for everyone.
So let's get right into where their conversation started, that feeling of significant change. One person shared a really big one. They moved to a whole new city and started a new job,
Wow.
all within the last 3 months or so.
Wow. That's double duty on the change front. New place, new people, totally new job responsibilities.
Definitely.
They talked about feeling, a lot of nerves at first, which honestly is completely understandable when your entire world kind of gets reset like that.
Oh, absolutely. That initial discomfort is very real. But what's interesting is their journey through it.
Yeah.
Moving from feeling unsure, maybe a bit lost,
Yeah.
to gradually settling in, finding those moments of connection with new colleagues, starting to feel like, okay, I belong here.
And from this really big, potentially kind of overwhelming experience, they pulled out two really powerful lessons.
Okay.
First, this sort of self-discovery, realizing they were actually much stronger, more capable of handling change than they'd maybe given themselves credit for before.
Yeah, pushing past that inner doubt. That's huge.
Huge win. And the second lesson, which might sound simple, but they found it absolutely vital,
What's that?
the importance of routines.
Yes. Routines. This came up a lot.
It really landed for me. They described feeling kind of adrift at first without their old habits to anchor them.
Makes sense.
So they deliberately, consciously built new ones. We're talking like consistent things, waking up at the same time every day, going for a walk in the morning, trying to plan healthy meals, reading a bit in the evening, simple stuff.
And what they really emphasized was how these were small, almost mundane actions, really. But because they were small and consistent, they provided this profound sense of balance and control, especially during a time when everything else felt so uncertain.
Exactly. It's like they weren't fighting the external chaos directly, but building these internal anchors instead.
Good way to put it.
And crucially, they connected these routines directly to staying focused on their goals, even with all the upheaval. So this is a really critical takeaway for you listening. How can building some predictable, small actions create stability and keep your direction clear when life's throwing curveballs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And moving from just coping with the initial shock of change, the conversation then kind of shifted naturally towards setting new goals.
Yeah.
When your world's already in flux.
Right, because change isn't just about survival, it's also about, well, what's next?
Exactly. And one goal they talked about tackling was public speaking.
A common one.
Yeah, like a lot of people, they got nervous speaking in front of others. So the concrete step, they joined a local speaking club.
Okay, so actually doing something about it, not just worrying.
Precisely. It wasn't just thinking about it. It was active problem solving. And they admitted, it fell hard at first.
I bet.
But the structure of the club, the supportive group atmosphere, The practice every week, it led to real improvement. They actually shared feeling genuinely proud after giving even just a small speech.
That's fantastic. And there's that little gem of an insight they shared too. Feeling nervous isn't necessarily bad.
Right. It just shows you care. It kind of reframes that discomfort, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
not just a barrier, it's maybe a sign of commitment.
I like that. Okay, so beyond skill building, like public speaking, they also talked about a more personal goal, which was simply wanting to read more. The specific target was at least one book a month.
Nice. A measurable goal.
Yeah. And they tend to lean towards self-improvement books, biographies, and novels that have, a strong message.
Got it.
And one book really stood out for them, The Alchemist.
Ah, Paulo Coelho. Classic.
Exactly. They described it not just as like a good read, but as something that actively inspired them to follow their dreams. Yeah.
And even offered like practical wisdom for those moments when they felt lost or unsure.
That really highlights the power of stories, doesn't it?
Totally.
They're not just escapism. The right story, the right resource, it can genuinely offer guidance. It can help us see that navigating change, even the really hard parts, can lead somewhere better.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what stories or ideas could serve as your personal compass right now.
Good question. Then the conversation brought in the other person's experience, tackling something new.
Okay, what was that?
They started learning a new language, Spanish.
Oh, fun. But also challenging.
Exactly. Their experience sounded so universal, the excitement mixed with the difficulty.
Yeah.
Those days where you feel like you're making huge leaps forward.
And then the next day you're stuck on the same basic word.
Totally. Feeling completely stuck.
So what was their strategy for that?
Really simple, but powerful.
Hmm.
Just trying to practice a little bit every single day. Consistency again.
Ah, there it is again.
Yeah.
Consistency. And this whole journey, it offered a surprising insight for them personally.
Oh, yeah.
It forced them to really understand what it feels like to be a complete beginner again.
Good point.
And they realized this perspective made them so much more empathetic towards others learning their language, like English speakers maybe struggling with nuances.
That's really insightful. It builds connection.
And it absolutely reinforced that fundamental truth about learning anything new.
Yeah.
It is more than okay to make mistakes.
Yes, so important.
Mistakes aren't failures.
Yeah.
They're just inherent. They're essential steps in the process. You make them, you learn, you adjust, you keep going.
Which, brings us right back to that theme both speakers kept circling around. Consistency.
It just kept coming up, didn't it? Whether it was learning Spanish vocab or building those daily routines or practicing a speech.
Consistency was the bedrock.
Definitely. And tied really closely to consistency is another vital point they wrestled with. Discipline versus motivation.
Ah, the age-old battle.
Right. They were very honest. They had plenty of days where motivation was just nowhere to be found.
Tell me about it. We often hear, find your motivation, get inspired.
But they explained that discipline is precisely what needs to kick in when motivation decides to take a vacation.
Yeah. It's what you do when you don't feel like it.
Exactly. Their takeaway was kind of blunt, but crucial. If you only act when you feel like it, well, you might just never start. Or you certainly won't sustain it.
Motivation's the spark, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the spark. But discipline is the fuel. It's the engine that keeps you moving, even when that spark feels long gone.
So how did they bridge that gap? When motivation was low, did they have any, practical tips?
They did. They shared some incredibly practical little tricks they used. Just small things.
Okay, like what?
Well, one kept their Spanish book right on their desk. A constant visual nudge,
Harder to forget.
Simple but smart. Reduces friction.
Exactly. And the other person started leaving their running shoes right by the door. Same principle. Make the desired action slightly easier to start. Make forgetting it harder.
Precisely. These aren't like revolutionary ideas, but they are active strategies, ways to remove excuses from your immediate environment.
Definitely worth considering for your own goals. Like, what small environmental tweak could make your desired habit just a little bit easier?
Good thought. And alongside these physical cues, they also talk about the habit of actually writing down their goals.
Oh, yeah, pen and paper.
Yeah, they prefer doing it by hand in a notebook. And they made it a ritual to review those goals every Sunday.
Interesting. Why by hand?
They felt it created a stronger connection,
Yeah,
made the goals feel more tangible, more real somehow.
I get that.
Plus, there's just that simple satisfaction, right, of physically checking things off a list as you make progress.
Definitely motivating in itself. It's a straightforward system. Commit tangibly, review regularly.
Yeah, a powerful way to keep focus amidst all the distractions life throws at us.
So if we synthesize all these points, the routines, setting goals, the consistency, discipline over motivation, those little tricks, writing things down, they offered some really solid, actionable advice for anyone going through big life changes.
They really did. The first piece was, don't be afraid to start over.
Yeah. Change is scary, no doubt.
It is. But it also inherently creates space for new opportunities, things you might not even have seen before.
True. And the core message they kept coming back to was trust yourself.
Mm-hmm. Trust yourself and take it one step at a time. You don't need the whole path figured out.
Just the next step.
Just the next step.
And one final kind of unique point they touched on was just the value of having the right language for what you're experiencing, finding specific words or expressions related to change or learning or goals.
Ah, interesting. How did that help?
It actually helped them articulate their internal state better and navigate the process more effectively. It's a good reminder that sometimes finding the right words is a key step in understanding and managing the whole experience.
That makes sense. Putting a name to it.
Exactly. So to quickly kind of wrap up our dive into their conversation, change is inevitable, right?
Right.
And navigating it builds resilience, often in ways you don't expect.
And routines aren't about being restrictive. They can be essential anchors when life feels chaotic.
Absolutely. Setting goals, taking those small, consistent steps, that seems to be the path forward.
And remember, consistency and discipline are often way more reliable than just waiting for motivation to strike.
Yeah. Use those simple little tricks. Write things down, make it easier on yourself.
Trust the process. Trust yourself, one step at a time.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to sit with based on all this. If, as they discovered, mistakes are really just part of the learning process, and discipline is the engine that runs even when motivation is low, what difficult change or maybe what challenging goal have you been putting off?
Yeah. Are you waiting to feel ready? Waiting for that perfect wave of inspiration that might never actually come?
Could taking just one small, consistent step right now, even if it feels imperfect, even if you're not feeling particularly motivated, could that be the actual starting point you've been waiting for all along?
Something to think about.